traveling around.
Yet all was not extinct in this deep loss. The being turned not toward nothingness. There was some high, surpassing secrecy, and when she sat alone with Satyavan, her moveless mind within that searched and strove in the heart of the profound and intimate night, she turned to the face of a veiled, voiceless truth, hid in the dumb recess of the heart, all waiting beyond the last peak climbed by soul.
Good morning. So we're reading in Book 7, Canto 7, the discovery of the cosmic spirit and the cosmic consciousness. And we've come to page 553, 6 lines up from the bottom. So Savitri has experienced nirvana, was described in the last canto and in the beginning of this canto. I'll read a little from the bottom of 551 that describes this experience, which is now beginning to change. It says, around her soul's muteness, all moved as of old. A vacant consciousness watched from within, empty of all but bare reality. There was no will behind the word and act, no thought formed in her brain to guide the speech. An impersonal emptiness walked and spoke in her. Something perhaps unfelt, unseen, unknown, guarded the body for its future work, or nature moved in her old stream of force. Perhaps she bore, made conscious in her breast, the miraculous nihil, origin of our souls, and source and sum of the vast world's events, the womb and grave of thought, a cipher of God, a zero circle of being's totality. It used her speech and acted in her acts. It was beauty in her limbs, life in her breath. The original mystery bore her human face. Thus was she lost within to separate self. Her mortal ego perished in God's night. Only a body was left, the ego's shell, afloat mid drift and foam of the world sea, a sea of dream watched by a motionless sense in a figure of unreal reality. But now, Sri Aurobindo begins describing that a greater knowledge and wisdom is kind of seizing control of her mind and sense and speaking through her. On middle of page 553. Or listening to the sages of the woods in question and in answer broke from her high, strange revealings impossible to men. Something or someone, secret and remote, took hold of her body for his mystic use. Her mouth was seized to channel ineffable truths. Knowledge unthinkable found in utterance. So now let's continue. He's going to continue describing this experience. And I think we'll start on this side. 6 lines up from the bottom on 553.
Inconscient nature dealt with the world it had made, and using still the body's instruments, slipped through the conscious void she had become. Superconscient mystery through that void, mission its word to touch the thoughts of men. As yet, this great impersonal speech was rare. But now the unmoving, wide spiritual space in which her mind survived tranquil and bare admitted a traveler from the cosmic breadths. A thought came through draped as an outer voice. It called not for the witness of the mind, it spoke not to the hushed receiving heart. It came direct to the pure perception seat, and only center now of consciousness. If center could be where all seemed only space, no more shut in by body's walls and gates, her being, a circle without circumference, already now surpassed all cosmic bounds, and more spread into infinity. This being was its own unbounded world, a world without form or feature or circumstance. It had no ground, no wall, no roof of thought, yet saw itself and looked on the all around in a silence motionless and illimitable. There was no person there, no centered mind, no seat of feeling on which beat events or objects wrought and shaped reaction stress. There was no motion in this inner world. All was still and even infinity. In her, the unseen, the unknown waited his hour.
Thank you. Sri Aurobindo is describing experience, I think, very subtle and maybe difficult for us to understand. It seems that the experience is very slightly changing here. Whereas before there was this emptiness, and then it was just kind of watching all that was going on around, as if separate from itself and unreal in some way. He had described it as the people walking looking like they were just cut out puppets or something, and just all the different objects of nature seeming unreal. But now there seems to be a kind of a shift in identification with this vast quietude and emptiness. So I'll just maybe read some of the lines that are describing that. So first he's saying, but now at the top of the 554, but now the unmoving, wide spiritual space in which her mind survived, tranquil and bare, admitted a traveler from the cosmic breath. A thought came through, draped as an outer voice. But now there's some kind of identification with this. And it says, it called not for the witness of the mind. It spoke not to the hushed receiving heart. It came direct to the pure perception seat, and only center now of consciousness. If center could be where all seemed only space. no more shut in by body's walls and gates, her being, a circle without circumference, already now surpassed all cosmic bounds, and more spread into infinity. This being was its own unbounded world, a world without form or feature or circumstance. It had no ground, no wall, no roof of thought, yet saw itself and looked on all around in a silence motionless and illimitable. I don't know, it seems it's pretty similar to this state of nirvana, but I have a sense of a slight kind of change in it, in which she's identifying with some consciousness that's there. And we've already seen, like, he began that description by this thought kind of coming from a traveler from the cosmic breadth. So that was how he describes it, kind of originating this experience. So something is coming out of the unknowable into her, a kind of a knowledge, a consciousness is there. And she is identified with it in some way. It came direct to the pure perception seat. Now this experience is going to continue to change, I think, and in the next segment. So, Roberto?
But now she sat by sleeping Satyavan, awake within, and the enormous night surrounded her with the unknowables vast. A voice began to speak from her own heart that was not hers, yet mastered thought and sense. As it spoke, all changed within her and without. All was, all lived. She felt all being one. The world of unreality ceased to be. There was no more a universe built by mind, convicted as a structure or a sign, a spirit. A being saw created things and cast itself into unnumbered forms, and was what it saw and made. All now became an evidence of one stupendous truth, a truth in which negation had no place, a being and a living consciousness, a stark and absolute reality. There the unreal could not find a place. The sense of unreality was slain. There all was conscious, made of the infinite. All had a substance of eternity.
Thank you. So I think here we find more clearly that change that is occurring. And what he emphasizes here is that the world of unreality ceased to be. Before, when she was looking out at the world, it all seemed unreal. And there was just this emptiness which seemed alone the reality, with such a powerful sense of being or non-being, whatever it was, it just kind of blocked out everything else. Everything else seemed unreal. But now that unreality ceases, and all that she perceives is taken into the experience and becomes one with it. All that she perceives now, it's all part of that same quietude and vast infinity of being. A spirit, a being, saw created things and cast itself into unnumbered forms, and was what it saw and made. All now became an evidence of one stupendous truth, a truth in which negation had no place, a being and a living consciousness, a stark and absolute reality. And then these lines, oh no, this comes in the next segment. There all was conscious, made of the infinite. All had a substance of eternity. So all becomes part of the same whole, the same oneness. So let's continue. Auroville.
Yet this was the same indecipherable. It seemed to cast from it universe like a dream vanishing forever into an original void. But this was no more some vague ubiquitous point or a cipher of vastness in unreal naught. It was the same, but now no more seemed far, to the living clasp of her recovered soul. It was herself, it was the self of all. It was the reality of existing things. It was the consciousness of all that lived and felt and saw. It was timelessness and time. It was the bliss of formlessness and form. It was all love and the one beloved's arms. It was sight and thought in one all-seeing mind. It was joy of being on the peaks of God. She passed beyond time into eternity, slipped out of space and became the infinite. Her being rose into unreachable heights and found no end of its journey in the self. It plunged into the unfathomable deeps and found no end to the silent mystery that held all world within one lonely breast, yet harbored all creation's multitudes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
These first lines seem to describe something essential about it, what she's experiencing. It seemed to cast from it universe like a dream, vanishing forever into an original void. So there is the sense of the universe issuing out of it, whatever it is, but it's still indecipherable. It still cannot be really fathomed in any way of what it is. And it also maybe has still a little bit of that sense of the original void, carrying that also with it. But the universe is somehow a part of it now. It's not separate. And now the experience too of it is more intimate. It feels more real, less of a void or emptiness. It was the same, but now no more seemed far to the living clasp of her recovered soul. And then there's this kind of remarkable series in which he keeps repeating it was what it was. It was herself. It was the self of all. It was the reality of existing things. It was the consciousness of all that lived and felt and saw. It was timelessness and time. It was the bliss of formlessness and form. It was all love in the one beloved's arms. It was sight and thought in one all-seeing mind. It was joy of being on the peaks of God. And then he describes this other aspect of it here in these closing lines, just of how it reaches everywhere into infinity. She passed beyond time into eternity, slipped out of space and became the infinite. Her being rose into unreachable heights and found no end in its journey in the self. It plunged into unfathomable deeps and found no end to the silent mystery that held all world within one lonely breast, yet harbored all creation's multitudes. In those last lines, there's something of this perhaps fusing of the individual with the cosmic. As she's holding all of the world, all the multitude of creation in her lonely breast. So somehow that individual is merged with that cosmic consciousness. Let's continue, Nitya. Third line from the bottom.
She was all vastness.
Yeah.
She was all vastness and one measureless point. She was a height beyond heights, a depth beyond depths. She lived in the everlasting and was all that harbors death and bears the wheeling hours. All contraries were true in one huge spirit, surpassing measure, change, and circumstance, an individual, one with cosmic self, in the heart of the transcendence miracle and the secret of world personality, was the Creator and the Lord of all. Mind was a single innumerable look upon himself and all that he became. Life was his drama, and the vast a stage. The universe was his body, God its soul. All was one single immense reality, all its innumerable phenomenon. Her spirit saw the world as living God. It saw the One and knew that all was He. She knew Him as the Absolute's self-space, one with herself and ground of all things here, in which the world wanders seeking for the truth, guarded behind its face of ignorance. She followed him through the march of endless time.
Thank you. Pause. Sri Aurobindo kind of repeats or reiterates that idea of the infinity and eternity of the experience. She was all vastness and one measureless point. She was a height beyond heights, a depth beyond depths. She lived in the everlasting and was all that harbors death and bears the wheeling hours. So here he's bringing in another point, which he emphasizes in the next lines, all contraries were true in one huge spirit, surpassing measure, change, and circumstance. So here he's saying that it holds within it all contraries, all contradictions, all opposites. And the next sentence, also very profound, an individual, one with cosmic self, in the heart of the transcendence miracle. And the secret of world personality was the Creator and the Lord of all. So we see in this experience a merging of the individual, the cosmic, the transcendent, but also this personal aspect of it. The secret of world personality. Everywhere we look in the world, at all the beings, they carry some personality, some unique characteristics. But perhaps this too has a kind of a personality. And it is a being, it's all being, but it's a being which is the Creator and the Lord of all other beings. So that personal and impersonal aspects of it, also which are contraries, are unified in this experience.
Everything is logically composed. So the supermind has taken care of everything. It's the absolute. So we're talking about the absolute here. But then he calls it a miracle also.
Yeah. So you're saying that it should be logical, or
It should. I don't see how to resolve. If you try to resolve all the contraries and all the opposites and all that, that's fine. We can understand that, I think. But then when you add the element of miracle, it becomes unfathomable. At least.
Well, I think it carries that characteristic. He refers to it repeatedly, this unfathomable nature of this mystery, he calls it. And, it's like it's something our minds cannot comprehend. We can't, I don't think, confine it in any logical formula or set of concepts.
But the ocean of consciousness, with us being all the drops and all the drops at once and individual, these kind of metaphors I think we can relate to more and more. But then it comes into another level that seems very, very difficult to deal with, where you have, let's say, the ocean of love, but then how do you get in the arms of the lover?
I sense this transcendent as really being kind of the miracle. It's the source from which all possibilities emerge. And it itself, cannot be limited by anything that emerges from it.
Yes.
So it's always like it could be a source of more and more and more, and always something else.
Yes.
It can never be limited in any way.
Yes.
So that's, I think, that miraculous nature of it.
But the transcendent is fine, but how do you include the non-transcendent, like matter? So then it must be that matter is energy that's beyond anything we understand.
Ultimately, it's all one big mystery.
Okay.
this section, I've been thinking about how one would bridge the transformative energy of the future evolution from a situation where you have nirvana, you have that really distant, faraway, nihilistic concept of divinity and existence. How are you going to bridge that to a woman in the forest with her lover's head on her lap? And that is gone. That is what's happening right there in that time. And the symbolism, so Savitri is a symbol. It's not just a legend, it isn't just a story. It becomes a symbol for how do we go from a state of consciousness where one through aspiration and tapasya and meditation and concentration can achieve this beyond. But how do you go from there into matter? And that's what's being built here. And it seems to me this is the symbol of how it gets embedded in the physical reality.
Yeah, it's nice that you bring that context of Savitri sitting in the forest with her husband there. That's where all of this is taking place, in that being and that woman there sitting on the floor. You know? So that's part of that mystery, I think. You know, how it can all be at the same time. And then how we too can enter into that transcendent or that cosmic consciousness, even as we, live our lives here.
It's like the miracle is the mystery, but the mystery is the miracle.
Okay. So let's continue.
She followed him.
I think we're at all nature.
Where? 194. She followed him, yes. She followed him through the march of endless time. All nature's happenings were events in her. The heartbeats of the cosmos were her own. All beings thought and felt and moved in her. She inhabited the vastness of the world. Its distances were her nature's boundaries. Its closenesses her own life's intimacies. Her mind became familiar with its mind. Its body was her body's larger frame, in which she lived and knew herself in it, one, multitudinous in its multitudes. She was a single being, yet all things. The world was her spirit's wide circumference. The thought of others were her intimates, their feelings close to her universal heart, their bodies her many bodies kin to her. She was no more herself, but all the world. Out of the infinitudes all came to her. Into the infinitudes sentient she spread. Infinity was her own nature's home.
Thank you. I think here we get into the heart of the cosmic consciousness, where there is this feeling of unity with all around, a sense that all is existing within one's consciousness, is a part of one's consciousness, but also one is spreading out into that and feeling this intimacy with all around as all parts of oneself or different aspects or extensions of one's own being. So we have these lines, all beings thought and felt and moved in her. She inhabited the vastness of the world. Its distances were her nature's boundaries, its closenesses, her own life's intimacies. Her mind became familiar with its mind. Its body was her body's larger frame, in which she lived and knew herself in it, one multitudinous in its multitudes. So she feels still herself, but she senses all others as also extensions of herself or aspects of herself. And she can sense the thoughts in others' minds, the feelings in others' hearts. Even the physicality of others is part of her own physicality. And then again, there is this infinite characteristic of the experience, something without limits. Out of the infinitudes all came to her, into the infinitudes, sentient, conscious, she spread. Infinity was her own natural home. So let's continue.
Nowhere she dwelt, her spirit was everywhere. The distant constellations wheeled round her. Earth saw her born, all worlds were her colonies. The greater worlds of life and mind were hers. All nature reproduced her in its lines. Its movements were large copies of her own. She was the single self of all these selves. She was in them, and they were all in her. This first was an immense identity, in which her own identity was lost. What seemed herself was an image of the whole. She was the subconscious life of tree and flower, the outbreak of the honeyed buds of spring. She burned in the passion and the splendor of the rose. She was the red heart of the passion flower, the dream white of the lotus in its pool. Out of subconscious life she climbed to mind. She was thought and the passion of the world's heart. She was the Godhead hid in the heart of man. She was the climbing of his soul to God. The cosmic flowered in her. She was its bed. She was time and the dreams of God in time. She was space and the whiteness of his days. From this she rose where time and space were not. The superconscious was her native air. Infinity was her movement's natural space. Eternity looked out from her on time.
Thank you. It's something very difficult for me to fathom what the experience would be like. Kind of she's identified in a sense with the world or the universe as a whole. But how to describe such a experience, of an unfolding of events in a billion different individuals. I don't know how it works. But she's just all of it as one being, as one universe, as one being. She is that, I guess. And then she's also not limited even by that identity with the universe. She even reaches up beyond it into that unfathomable mystery of the superconscient. And in fact, that's where she almost feels more at home, or more of her true self is even beyond any kind of form or limited expression. Yeah. Yeah, they're ultimately, it's one. Eternity looked out from her on time. So we finished book 7. We turn to book 8. We can begin, maybe we can even read through it. It's a short canto. Book 8, the Book of Death. So, Paula, 1 second, just let him come.
Canto 3, Death in the Forest. Now it was here, in this great golden dawn. By her still sleeping husband lain, she gazed into her past as one about to die looks back upon the sunlit fields of life, where he too ran and sported with the rest, lifted his head above the huge dark stream, into whose depths he must forever plunge. All she had been and all she lived again, the whole year in a swift and eddying race of memories swept through her and fled away into the irrecoverable past. Then, silently, she rose and, service done, bowed down to the great goddess simply carved by Satyavan upon a forest stone. What prayer she breathed, her soul and Durga knew. Perhaps she felt in the dim forest, huge, the infinite mother watching over her child. Perhaps the shrouded voice spoke some still word. At last, she came to the pale Mother Queen. She spoke, but with guarded lips and tranquil face, lest some stray word or some betraying look should let her pass into the mother's unknowing breast, slaying all happiness and need to live, a dire foreknowledge of the grief to come. Only the needed utterance passage found. All else she pressed back into her anguished heart and forced upon her speech an outward peace.
Thank you.
One year that I have lived with Satyavan, here on the emerald edge of the vast woods, in the iron ring of the enormous peaks, under the blue rifts of the forest sky, I have not gone into the silences of this great woodland that enriched my thoughts with mystery, nor in its green miracles wandered, but this small clearing was my world. Now has a strong desire seized all my heart, to go with Satyavan holding his hand, into the life that he has loved and touched. Herbs he has trod, and know the forest flowers, and hear at ease the birds and the scurrying life, that starts and ceases, rich far rustle of boughs, and all the mystic whispering of the woods. Release me now, and let my heart have rest. She answered, do as thy wise mind desires, O calm child sovereign with the eyes that rule. I hold thee for a strong goddess who has come, pitying our barren days. So dost thou serve, even as a slave might, yet art thou beyond all that thou doest, all our minds conceive, like the strong sun that serves earth from above.
Thank you.
Then the doomed husband and the woman who knew went with linked hands into that solemn world where beauty and grandeur and unspoken dream, where nature's mystic silence could be felt, communing with the secrecy of God. Beside her, Satyavan walked full of joy because she moved with him through his green haunts. He showed her all the forest's riches, flowers, innumerable of every odor and hue, and soft, thick, clinging creepers red and green, and strange rich plumaged birds, to every cry that haunted sweetly distant boughs replied, with a shrill singer's name more sweetly called. He spoke of all the things he loved. They were his boyhood's comrades and his playfellows, coevals and companions of his life, here in this world where every mood he knew. Their thoughts, which to the common mind are blank, he shared to every wild emotion felt an answer. Deeply she listened, but to hear the voice that soon would cease from tender words, and treasure its sweet cadences beloved, for lonely memory when none by her walked, and the beloved voice could speak no more. But little dwelt her mind upon their sense of death, not life she thought, or life's lone end.
Thank you.
Love in her bosom, hurt with the jagged edges, of anguish moaned at every step with pain, crying, now perhaps his voice will cease forever. Even by some vague touch oppressed, sometimes her eyes looked round as if their orbs might see the dim and dreadful gods approach. But Satyavan had paused. He meant to finish his labor here, that happy, linked, uncaring, they too might wander free in the green deep, primeval mystery of the forest's heart. A tree that raised its tranquil head to heaven, luxuriating in verdure, summoning the breeze with amorous wideness of its boughs, he chose and with his steel assailed the arm, brown, rough, and strong, hidden in its emerald tress. Wordless but near she watched, no turn to lose of the bright face and body which she loved. Her life was now in seconds, not in hours, and every moment she economized like a pale merchant leaned above his store, the miser of his poor remaining gold. But Satyavan wielded a joyous axe. He sang high snatches of a sage's chant that pealed of conquered death and demons slain, and sometimes paused to cry to her sweet speech of love and mockery tenderer than love. She, like a pantheress, leaped upon his words and carried them into her cavern heart.
Thank you. Helmut.
But as he worked, his doom upon him came. The violent and hungry hounds of pain traveled through his body, biting as they passed silently. And all his suffering breath besieged strove to rend life's strong heart cords and be free. Then helped, as if a beast had left its prey, a moment in a wave of rich relief, reborn to strength and happy ease, he stood, rejoicing, and resumed his confident toil, but with less seeing strokes. Now the great woodsman hewed at him, and his labor ceased. Lifting his arm, he flung away the poignant axe, far from him like an instrument of pain. She came to him in silent anguish and clasped, and he cried to her, "Savitri, a pang cleaves through my head and breast, as if the axe were piercing it and not the living branch. Such agony rends me as the tree must feel when it is sundered and must lose its life. A while let me lay my head upon thy lap, and guard me with thy hands from evil fate. Perhaps because thou touchest, death may pass.
Thank you.
Then Savitri sat under branches white, cool, green against the sun, not the hurt tree which his keen axe has cloven, that she shunned, but leaned beneath a fortunate kingly trunk. She guarded him in her bosom, and strove to soothe his anguished brow and body with her hands. All grief and fear were dead within her now, and a great calm had fallen. The wish to lessen his suffering, the impulse that opposes pain, were the one mortal feeling left. It passed. Griefless and strong she waited, like the gods. But now his sweet familiar hue was changed into a tarnished grayness, and his eyes dimmed over, forsaken of the clear light she loved. Only the dull and physical mind was left, vacant of the bright spirit's luminous gaze. But once before it faded wholly back, he cried out in a clinging last despair, "Savitri, Savitri, O Savitri, lean down, my soul, and kiss me while I die." And even as her pallid lips pressed his failed, losing last sweetness of response. His cheek pressed down her golden arm. She sought his mouth still with her living mouth, as if she could persuade his soul back with her kiss. Then grew aware they were no more alone.
Thank you.
Something had come there, conscious, vast, and dire. Near her she felt a silent shade, immense, chilling the noon with darkness for its back. An awful hush had fallen upon the place. There was no cry of birds, no voice of beasts. A terror and an anguish filled the world, as if annihilation's mystery had taken a sensible form. A cosmic mind looked out on all from formidable eyes, contemning all with its unbearable gaze and with immortal lids and a vast brow. It saw in its immense destroying thought all things and being as a painful dream, rejecting with calm disdain nature's delight, the wordless meaning of its deep regard, voicing the unreality of things and life that would be forever but never was, and its brief and vain recurrence without cease, as if from a silence without form or name, the shadow of a remote, uncaring God, doomed to his naught, the illusory universe, canceling its show of idea and act in time, and its imitation of eternity. She knew that visible death was standing there, and Satyavan had passed from her embrace.
Thank you. End of part 2. So we'll stop there for today.
Out of the infinitude, all came to her. Into the infinitude, sentient, she spiked. Infinity was her own natural home. Nowhere she dwelt. Her spirit was everywhere. The distant constellation wheeled around her. Earth saw her born. All worlds were her colony. The greater worlds of life and mind were hers. All nature reproduced her in its life. Its movements were large copies of her own. She was the single self of all these cells. She was in them, and they were all in her.
Thanks to Sri Aurobindo.